As the North American launch of the Sega CD approached, the magazine articles, TV commercials, and print ads were everywhere. The talk of powerful hardware that could scale and rotate sprites really excited me, and I had big expectations for the possibilities. I was 17 years old with a job, so I locked in on the device and planned to own it as soon as I could save the money. Many of the early releases for the Sega CD were full motion video based, so you didn't really get to see any of the cool features the technology was capable of. No kidding! If you go back and look at the first few months the Sega CD was available, it was almost like Sega didn't care at all about what actually made that hardware special. I didn't get the unit right at launch, but it didn't take me long to get a Sega CD of my own, and when I waded into the available games, well, I was extremely underwhelmed. For months I read all about the fancy effects this thing was capable of, and yet there I sat with not a single game to show any of that off. Fortunately, there were a few offerings that weren't full motion video, and among that small lot was Core Design's Wonder Dog, a 2D platformer with a lot riding on its shoulders. While full motion video had a certain appeal because of its relative newness to home consoles, I wanted traditional video game designs with lots of cool special effects. In this video, we will be taking a look at Wonder Dog and see if it was able to fill the void created by Sega's heavy focus on full motion video. Was Wonder Dog something special? Let's find out. The story here begins with the evil pit bully empire wreaking havoc on the peaceful planet of K9. Before the entire planet fell, scientists were able to send their only hope to Earth, a young pup who had been injected with the Wonder Serum, a super drug that would give him incredible powers. After being abandoned by the kid that found him, Wonder Dog must learn how to fight by battling the animals of Earth, who for some reason are absolutely hellbent on taking this puppy out. The gameplay is action platforming, which means that Wonder Dog will be jumping around, collecting stuff, taking out bad guys, and defeating huge bosses. Wonder Dog can run so that his jumps can go much further, and he can float by holding the jump button. He also has the ability to shoot stars. It's very important to understand that you have a certain amount of control over the arc of your stars. Tap the attack button and the star comes out bouncing in small hops. Hold the attack button longer and the star is stronger, arcs upwards more, and gives you a much larger bounce to hit higher targets. Pay attention to the bottom left area of the screen because that's your star power, an indicator of how long you charge the star and how powerful it's gonna be. Be careful, you can only have a few stars on screen at a time, and you'll be left defenseless in between bursts. Beside that star meter is the face of Wonder Dog, which acts as your life bar. Each ear represents a hit point. As you take damage, the ears drop. Take 3 hits and Wonder Dog loses a life. Your lives are the number beside the health meter. In the right hand corner there is a bone count. Collect 100 bones for a free life. Bones aren't the only items out there. Wings will replenish your life. Diamonds will give you extra score. Tornadoes will make you invincible, and smiley faces will reveal hidden platforms that will take you to a lot more loot. While you are running around, look out for flags that act as your checkpoints and loose dirt, which will allow you to dig into the ground and find hidden areas and items. Wonder Dog uses a password system, which gives you a unique code after you defeat each zone. Finally, Wonder Dog is only for one player. I was really impressed with Wonder Dog's visuals, at least in the first few stages. It's one of the most colorful games on the platform, and those layers in the background are a sight to behold. The art style itself is also incredibly impressive, which has sort of an otherworldly surrealness to it. Buildings bend and stretch in the distance, little details like lights on the lamppost flickering. enemies that look cute and lovable, yet are trying to kill you. There are also moments of line scrolling implemented that give the backgrounds an almost three-dimensional effect. The depth is extremely impressive and serves the other areas of the visuals very well. Old Wonder Dog here pulls a Rayman on us, however. While those first few stages start off really strong, the latter half of the game isn't nearly as impressive. The art style stays fun, but things take a dip into simplicity that feels like the game was rushed while in development. The backgrounds take the worst of it, sometimes dropping down to repeated patterns for far too long. Luckily, not all of them do this to the extreme, and you will still see some cool looking effects and animation here and there. Perhaps the most glaring omission from the presentation is the lack of any meaningful sprite scaling or rotational effects. I thought for sure, this being a Sega CD exclusive and its design being rooted in a well-known genre, the masters at Core Design would have made the Sega CD sing and show off exactly what it could do. That's not so. While the layering and scrolling effects look great, and there are a smattering of very simple scaling effects on the enemies, you don't get anything that screams it couldn't have been done on the base Genesis. There are moments of impressive animation that would have taken a decent sized cartridge to pull off, but outside of that, this is surprisingly short on Sega CD specific effects. It's still a good looking game overall, but I confess I was expecting a lot more. The music of Wonder Dog is mostly a middling affair that is upbeat and whimsical. You expect the music to sound like this, and for the most part, it serves the setting well. I wish it had a bit more energy and the stages had a larger variety in styles, but there isn't much more to complain about otherwise. Here are a few examples so you can get a feel for what it offers. The worst thing I can say about Wonder Dog is that its gameplay is that of a pretty standard action platformer and not much more. The stage design is unremarkable but serviceable. The visuals are at times nice, but don't use the Sega CD in any special way. The sound and music set a competent stage, but doesn't go much beyond that. It's fun, but not something you'd ever rank among the best in the genre. The enemy variety is impressive, but the boss fights are simple and over far too quickly. And that's it. That's the story of Wonder Dog for the Sega CD. A competent early release that I can neither praise enthusiastically or bash aggressively. I confess back then when the Sega CD was only 3 or 4 months old, I heaped an awful lot of expectation on Wonder Dog and came away a little let down. That may have been unfair of me to do to a single game, but with Sega pushing full motion video so strongly and nothing else showing off the platform's abilities in the early days, Wonder Dog was one of my few hopes. You need to keep all that in mind with my critiques here. Many of you will not have experienced it the same way or had those same expectations, which means you could have a much different feeling for the game. I can say without any reservation, coming at Wonder Dog from a modern perspective very much changes how I feel. The Sega CD did not have many of these types of games, and when the library is viewed in total, it stands out, especially since there is no cartridge variant of it like so many other releases for the platform. That means if you are a Sega CD fan and you are looking for something you can't play on the Genesis, this is a game you'll want to try. It wasn't the showpiece title I needed it to be in 1992, but it certainly holds its own as a fun and very playable addition to the Sega CD's library. Wonder Dog was absolutely loved by the gaming magazines upon its release in late 1992. The US publications in particular heaped massive amounts of praise on it. GameFan and GamePro made it sound like one of the best games ever made in the genre. PAL region reviews were glowing as well, and I didn't see or hear a negative opinion on it until the Japanese pulled no punches and railed against its average showing on such an expensive new platform. Wonder Dog was published by Victor, who used the character in Japan as sort of a mascot for its Wonder Mega line of consoles. These were Mega Drive and Mega CD units built into one device. Despite being so well received in the West, Wonder Dog would not get a sequel on the Sega CD or any other platform for that matter. It only saw a port to the Amiga computer line, and that was the last time we heard from the Super Pup. Despite my disappointment with Wonder Dog not showing off the Sega CD hardware, I still have many fond memories of this one. Today I focus more on what it is instead of what I wanted it to be, and I enjoy it much more because of that. That original disappointment was really all down to Sega itself and not this lone game. It was Sega that released a $300 add-on with no games showing off the hardware. It was Sega that doubled down on full motion video. It was Sega that dropped the ball, making the Sega CD feel like it was a big upgrade in that early batch of software. That leaves me recommending that you give Wonder Dog a try if you've never played it. Go in expecting a decent amount of fun, and that's exactly what you're gonna get. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for watching, and I will catch you next time.